Operating room number 4. Min was a final year photography student, and his graduation project was titled Forgotten Places. He had wandered through rusted factories, abandoned schools, even graveyards. But the location he most wanted to conquer, the one that had driven others away in fear, was the old District 5 hospital, abandoned since 1997 after a devastating fire in the basement. According to whispered rumors, it wasn't just an ordinary fire. Patients were burned alive. Doctors vanished without a trace. There were rooms in the basement that didn't exist on any original floor plan. And the strangest detail of all, police sealed off the hospital, but no officer dared to guard it for more than one night. Min didn't believe in ghosts. He simply saw this as the perfect chance to get some powerful, haunting photographs. He asked his close friend Anne to come along. Anne wasn't into creepy stuff, but reluctantly agreed. He didn't want Min going alone. They arrived in the afternoon, when the sunlight still poured through shattered windows, casting dusty golden beams on crumbling walls. The ground floor was silent. Only the sound of their dragging footsteps echoed in the cold, stagnant air. They climbed over rubble, taking photos of rusted beds and decaying hallways. But things started to feel off when they reached the stairs leading to the basement, and stopped suddenly, sweat beading on his forehead despite the chill. "Min, do you hear that?" Min listened. At first, he heard nothing. But then, a faint sound, like the wheels of a gurney rolling, echoed softly from below. From the darkness where light dared not reach. Min swallowed hard. "Probably the wind." "There's no wind in a basement," Anne replied, voice shaking. Still, they went down. Each step creaked. The smell of mildew thickened, mixed with something far worse, a scorched, greasy odor. Burned flesh? Neither wanted to think about it. There were 4 operating rooms in the basement. The walls bore soot stains from the fire, the ceiling in places had caved in. But one room, operating room number 4, was... Min raised his camera and aimed it at the door. A small square window in the door showed a pale greenish-blue glow. No mistake about it. A light was on inside. "Maybe someone's restoring the place?" Min offered, but even he didn't believe that. He reached out and pushed open the door. It swung wide without a sound, as if freshly oiled. Inside was empty. A rusted surgical table stood in the center. Glass cabinets were shattered, medical instruments scattered across the floor. But the light above glowed steadily. No flicker, no buzz. Nothing about it belonged in a place abandoned for over 20 years. And grabbed Min's sleeve. "It's freezing. I don't feel right. Let's go." Before Min could answer, a metallic scraping echoed from the corner of the room. Scritch, clink, scritch, clink. They turned. One of the surgical clamps was slowly sliding across the floor, as if pulled by an unseen hand, and screamed and bolted. Min stood frozen for a second, before panic took hold and he sprinted after his friend. As they rushed up the stairs, Min could clearly hear something behind them. Footsteps! Fast and heavy, racing up from the basement. He didn't look back. Neither of them did. They ran straight out of the hospital. 3 days had passed, but Min couldn't stop thinking about what he'd seen. Or rather, what he almost saw. The images on his camera were wrong. When he uploaded the photos onto his laptop, the majority looked fine. Hallways, crumbling walls, medical cabinets. But then he found the last file, taken just before they fled. He didn't remember taking it. It showed operating room number 4. But the room was not empty. In the photo, a figure in a scorched surgical gown stood over the rusted operating table. The face, if it was a face, was a charred, blackened mass. Only the eyes were visible, glowing red, hollow, inhuman. The figure held a long surgical clamp in its hand, frozen in mid-motion. Behind it, on the wall, were bloody smears forming symbols Min couldn't recognize. Min stared at the photo until his vision blurred. He closed the laptop, paced around his apartment, opened the fridge, forgot why. He felt a low throb behind his eyes, like a migraine forming from inside his skull. He hadn't slept properly since the visit. Every night at exactly 3:08 a.m., he would hear the clang of metal dropping somewhere in the apartment. He would get up, check the kitchen, the balcony, even under the bed, nothing. Always nothing. Then came the smell. It began subtly, burnt plastic maybe. Then each night, it became stronger, fresher, more like charred meat. On the fifth night, Min found burn marks on the floor of his bedroom. 3 of them, perfect ovals, as if someone had stepped into the room with feet on fire. He showed An the photo and turned pale. No, Min, delete it. Forget the whole damn place. I can't. You saw what I saw, right? That room wasn't lit by accident. That photo wasn't normal. Exactly, and shouted. That's why we shouldn't go back. But Min had already decided. There were questions that needed answers. Who or what was in that room? Why did the lights still work? Why did Min remember seeing an empty room while the camera saw something else? So on the 7th day, Min returned to the hospital, alone. This time he came prepared. Flashlights, extra batteries, incense sticks his grandmother insisted he bring, and a GoPro mounted to his chest. He arrived just before dusk, the sun already retreating behind thick storm clouds. The hospital seemed darker than before, as if anticipating his return. Inside, everything was unchanged. Dust, rust, silence. Min moved quickly. He avoided the top floors, heading straight down to the basement. Each step down the stairwell made his spine tighten. There was a pressure in the air, thick, oppressive, like being underwater. When he reached the bottom, he paused. There it was again. Clack, roll, clack, roll. The gurney sound. Min turned on the GoPro, whispered a quick prayer, and pushed open the door to operating room number 4. This time, it was pitch black. No overhead light, no eerie glow, just blackness that swallowed his flashlight beam like fog. He stepped in slowly. The beam caught the metal table, same as before, but now something was on it. A lump, a shape, covered in a white sheet. The sheet was moving. Min froze. The sheet pulsed, as if something underneath was breathing. Then it began to rise, slowly, steadily, as if pulled up by invisible hands. He couldn't move, couldn't blink. The sheet rose completely. There was nothing underneath, just air. Then the overhead light snapped on with a loud buzz. The figure from the photo was standing at the end of the table, no longer a blur. Min could see its face, what remained of it. Charred skin, lips burnt away, jawbone exposed, teeth clenched tight. A single eyeball stared at him from a socket of blackened flesh. It raised its right hand, clutching the same clamp. Doctor, it rasped, scalpel. The sound wasn't from the figure. It was a recording, playing from an old intercom speaker in the corner. Min stumbled backward, heart pounding like a war drum. He turned to run, but the door slammed shut. Lights flickered. The figure didn't move. But something else did. The trolleys, the surgical trays, the scalpels. All around the room, metal instruments began to shake, lifting off the shelves, hovering as if held in unseen hands. Min screamed. He kicked the door, pounded on it. Something whispered behind his ear. Lie down. He turned. There was no one there. But when he turned back to the table, he was on it. His body lay flat on the operating table. Eyes open, mouth agape. GoPro still blinking red. But he was also standing by the door, watching. He was both. And the figure? It had moved beside the table, slowly lowering its face toward Min's unmoving body. Then the light snapped off. Min awoke in his own bed. The sunlight burned his eyes. His mouth was dry, and his shirt clung to his chest with sweat. Disoriented, he shot up and looked around. Everything seemed normal. Had it all been a dream? He glanced at his desk. The GoPro sat there, battery drained. He plugged it into his laptop, hands trembling. There were 2 files. The first showed the walk through the basement, blurry footage, eerie silence, until he entered operating room number 4. The moment the light switched on, the feed glitched, and then it went black. The second video was different. It wasn't recorded from his chest mount. It was recorded from above, as if someone or something had been watching from the ceiling. It showed him, Min, lying on the operating table. He was conscious, eyes open, blinking, breathing fast. The figure in the burned surgical gown moved around him, calmly selecting tools from a floating tray. It didn't speak. It didn't even look angry. It simply looked clinical. And then it began the procedure. Min shut the laptop and vomited into the trash bin beside his desk. The cuts, the flesh, the quiet squelch of metal through skin. And yet the Min on the table never screamed. After a long while, he calmed down. He tried to convince himself it was an elaborate hallucination, maybe some kind of post-traumatic stress. But something didn't fit. His torso ached. He lifted his shirt. No scars, but his skin felt thinner, almost translucent. And there was a faint black mark near his navel, like a tiny burned circle, no larger than a coin. He tried to call on. No answer. He drove to Anne's apartment, but the door was open. Inside, the place was a wreck, clothes thrown everywhere, furniture overturned. On the wall, scratched in what looked like dried blood, were the words, "He took his own face." Min backed away, heart in his throat. He called the police, then left. He didn't want to be involved. Couldn't be. He didn't know what was happening. That night, he dreamed. He was back in the operating room, but this time, he was the surgeon. His hands were gloved, holding a scalpel. On the table was another version of himself, eyes wide, mouth gagged. The patient struggled. He leaned in close. "You brought this on yourself," he said, his voice distorted. He made the first incision with surgical precision and woke up screaming. Days passed. Min stopped going to class. He stopped eating. He stopped checking the GoPro. He boarded up his windows and unplugged his phone. His mind unraveled like cheap thread. But the worst part wasn't the memories or the dreams. It was the mirror. Every time he looked into it, something was wrong. His reflection would blink before he did. Sometimes it smiled on its own. Sometimes it turned its head slightly when he didn't. And one night, the mirror version of Min spoke. "You should never have gone back." Min shattered the mirror with a chair. He was losing time now, waking up in different rooms, clothes soaked with water, feet covered in soot. Once, he awoke in the middle of the street with hospital wristbands on both arms. The name tag read Patient Zero. He tried burning the photo. It wouldn't burn. He tried deleting the footage. The file duplicated itself every time. Eventually, Min understood. Whatever happened that night, he didn't just see something. Something saw him back. And now it was inside his mind, inside his body, borrowing his face piece by piece. One afternoon, Min sat in his room staring at the wall. There was a knock at the door. Knock, knock, knock. He didn't move. A voice whispered right beside his ear, though he was alone. "Scalpel." Min no longer recognized himself. The reflection in windows, the voice on his phone, the handwriting in his notebook, all slightly wrong. He tried seeing a psychiatrist, but the moment he stepped into the clinic, the receptionist stared at him and whispered something in Thai. He recognized only one word. Fee. Ghost. She locked the door behind him. Min knew then. It wasn't just in his head. Something had followed him back from the hospital. No, not followed. Attached. Something that remembered the fire. That remembered being cut open. Left to die. A consciousness born in ash and pain. Something that used Min as a shell. And he could feel it. Growing stronger. He started writing everything down. Notebooks filled with diagrams, journal entries, names, hospital blueprints. He even found blueprints for the original District 5 hospital. There it was, operating room number 4, not on the official layout, but drawn faintly beneath, like it had been hidden, buried in layers of renovations. A room never meant to exist. That night, he made his decision. Min returned to the hospital one last time. The streets were quiet. The building loomed like a corpse, waiting. He entered without hesitation, stepping over glass and debris. The air felt different now, warm, humid, alive. He moved through the darkness without flashlight. His eyes had adjusted to the dark, or maybe something else was guiding him. He descended the stairs. Each step thudded like a heartbeat. When he reached the basement, the door to operating room number 4 was already open. Light spilled out. He entered. The room was clean, sterile. White walls, stainless steel counters, surgical trays neatly arranged, as if it had never been abandoned. On the table lay Shh himself. Min stepped closer. The body on the table was pale, breathing slowly. Its eyes opened, locking onto his. "You're the last patient," the voice said, not from the body, but from behind. Min turned. The surgeon was there, but not charred anymore. It wore Min's face, perfectly, except for the eyes, black, glassy, inhuman. "What are you?" Min asked. "Wait." The thing tilted its head. "I am the memory, the pain, the echo. I was born in room 4. You opened the door." "Why me?" "Because you looked, because you saw, because you believed." Min stepped back. "I didn't believe in anything. And yet here you are." The figure extended a hand holding a scalpel. "I only need one more thing." "What?" "Consent." Min stared. His mind raced. Was it madness? Possession? A dream? The air thickened. The lights flickered, popped, and then Min did something strange. He nodded. "I'm tired," he said. "Take it." The lights dimmed. The figure leaned in. Min lay down on the table beside his double. The steel was cold. He felt straps tighten around his wrists, his ankles. He didn't resist. Above him, The surgical light buzzed on. He heard the scalpel slide from its tray. And then, nothing. Epilogue, room reopened. Weeks later, District 5 Hospital was demolished. But during excavation, construction workers found a hidden chamber beneath the old foundation, unmarked, sealed. Inside, they discovered a pristine operating room, sterile, intact, untouched by time. On the table lay a single body, eyes wide open, smiling. A GoPro blinked red beside it, still recording. The footage showed a man standing in the corner of the room, adjusting surgical tools. He wore a student's hoodie. His face, young, thin, calm, was unmistakable. The name on the hospital wristband was Minlechen of 4.